Hey everybody, how you doing today? Hope you're doing well. Hope everything's going good for you. I unfortunately, I'm going to go ahead and tell you right now, I am sick. I have bronchitis, so that's why my voice sounds a little different. Also, too, I may sound a little more nasally than usual. Um, but if I start coughing or hacking or something like that in the video, please do overlook it. Um, I do apologize in advance. Okay, but some of you have been asking for a video on the car behind me, and I thought it would be appropriate to go ahead and make this video. I've been wanting to make it for a while now, but there's been a lot of stuff that's been coming up, and just everything has been getting in the way. So why don't we get started here? Okay. This car here is mine. It's my car. Um, I'll go ahead and tell you, give you a little short, little rundown, Reader's Digest version of the history, my history with the car. Um, I've had this car continuously. I bought it in the summer of 1988. Bought it by myself. My parents weren't with me. I knew if they were, they'd say no. So yeah, I went and bought it anyway. This particular car is a 1965 Plymouth Barracuda. When I first saw it a year prior to me buying it, I didn't even know what it was. I'd never seen one before. But I started looking in books and started reading and studying and trying to figure out what was this car behind me. Having to fiddle with my lights here a little bit so that I can get them to work. Fluorescent lights. That's the way it is. Unfortunately, here right now we've got some crappy weather, and it's really windy. It's kind of stormy looking outside. I usually keep my truck inside in the garage. I've got it backed in, not completely all the way, but I've got it backed in. So unfortunately, right now I don't have a lot of room to maneuver stuff around, and I've got a pretty tight, small little garage. Um, but my history with this car, like I said, goes back all the way to '88. I bought it with my own money, and I didn't. My apologies. I drove it home. I actually rode my bicycle over there to the owner's place and paid him the money, signed the title, drove it home, and got it registered and insured and everything like that. And I actually drove it for a couple of years, and then the engine let go. Um, and So then I had to park it for a while. Actually, I wound up parking it for many years. I just got it running in about 2013, and so I did a lot of work. I've done not a lot of work to it. I have been doing some little amounts of work all through the years, but um, but I've never ever really wanted to sell this car because I knew if I ever sold it, there's just no way in the world I'd ever be able to buy it back or buy another one like it. So anyway, let me get on to showing you the car. Okay. Um, I tell you what, why don't we just do something really weird and start with the back of the car? Or I'm gonna give you a little history. I like that. Yeah, I'll give you a little history on the car. This particular car has been in this area since the 80s. So I think it came from Oak Ridge. I'm not absolutely certain if it was sold there brand new in 65. I have no documentation to prove that. So maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Anyway, um, these cars, the Barracuda, came out in 64. Came out a full 2 weeks before the Mustang. However, the Mustang, Ford went a different direction in the styling with the Mustang, which and gave it quite a few options, stuff like that, which really made the Mustang just really take off in sales, and the Barracuda not so much. So that's why these kind of these smaller cars like this are called pony cars, and they're not called fish cars. Okay, you get it? Barracuda, fish, Mustang, horse, pony, da 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 da. Okay. Anyway, um, but like the Mustang, they are based, as you can see, these are based on the Valiant. The Mustang was based on the Falcon. The chief designer was Milt Antonic. Also designing this car was a guy by the name of John Sampson. Um, he he was responsible for the name Barracuda, which I like. I have no problem with it. The first year Barracuda, the '64 model, uh, and this is my theory. Why didn't they separate the Barracuda more from the styling of the Valiant than what they did? And why they so closely associated the Barracuda with the Valiant? And my feelings were, my thinking and my thinking on it is this. It probably has to do with the fact that you're looking at a car that the Valiant was considered more of a European influenced and European styled kind of car. Um, it wasn't as conventional as cars like the Falcon. So there you go. It wasn't as radical as, like, say, the Corvair, but there you go. It's just, I think Chrysler and Plymouth was thinking that the Valiant and the Barracuda would be more associated with, sporty, compact, European type model cars, rather than being the Barracuda being associated with this lowly econobox kind of boring, dull, plain kind of car. Uh, Really, I've drove several Valiants, especially early Valiants, and let's get something understood. Early Valiants, early A body cars. These are A body. Early A body Mopars are 66, 60, 1960 to 1966. Okay. All right. So the later one, the later ones, beginning in '67, had a little different frame rails up front. The frame rails were 2 inches wider apart, which allowed for larger engines like, you know, 383s, 440s, that sort of thing. Okay. Now these, they don't have that. So putting a big block or a bigger engine in one of these, much more difficult to do. Okay. They were never really intended to have a V8, but Chrysler's engineers were able to get the LA V8 under the hood of these. Now, the 64 Barracudas had a different instrument cluster. Okay, they had an instrument cluster that was very different. Very, very different than these. As you can see, I've got my speedo right here, which is where it's supposed to be. And I've got the other gauges right here. Gas, alternator, and temperature. Okay. Now you see there's no tack here. Usually they would have a tack right here if it came. They would usually have a tack right here if it came with one. This one didn't. Okay. This car is actually a 180 horsepower V8 273 two-barrel car. Okay. It came with power steering and automatic transmission. No tack. So there you go. But now, like I was saying, the 64 Valiant and the 64 Barracuda had a different instrument cluster. They entirely different than this one. They had one large round dial, I think, or one large round dial over here, and I think 3 or 4 smaller dials over here on this side of the cluster. But it's very different. When you see one, you'll know what I'm talking about. This one here is 65 only. 66 is even different. So there you go. Now the 66 Barracuda is a very different looking. It's not very different, but it's different enough that it doesn't take an expert to notice the differences. One other little difference. 64 Barracuda had, the 65s did not. Back here. This right over here, this area right here, beneath the trunk lid, this panel would have the Valiant script right here. As a matter of fact, when the Valiant was launched in 1960, I'm sorry, my hand's in the way. When the Valiant was launched in 1960, it was launched as a car that was supposed to be separate from Plymouth. However, Chrysler's designers and executives and people like that pretty much thought that that wasn't going to pan out. And so after the first year, they brought it in-house to become a Plymouth. Now, the Barracuda was always, my apologies there, try and get the trunk lid open. Now, the Barracuda was never treated that way. It was always treated as, that first year was treated as a Valiant Barracuda. And then after that, it was just labeled Plymouth Barracuda. The Valiant name was dropped. However, if you notice, right over here, you can, let's see, can I get, okay, yeah, there we go. Now, if you see right here, we have the Valiant emblem right here, this V-style emblem. Some people have a real problem with this. I don't. This is actually supposed to be painted, and I think this is supposed to be painted like this. I think this one's supposed to be red, and this one's supposed to be blue, and I think this background is supposed to be black in here. I'm going to try to do that. Maybe try to do that this year, this summer here. And as you can see, you see that same emblem. Now, right here on the steering wheel, you see? Yeah, it's right there in the steering wheel. So it's pretty cool. Yeah. So I'm going to turn the steering wheel where it's wheel straight up and down. There we go. See, right there. Yeah, I know my plastic's kind of cracked up. It's 50 years old. 50-year-old plastic. Okay. Plastic in the 60s wasn't what it is today. Okay. All right. So, as you can see, I've got a tack here. All right, I've got myself a nice, neat little tack here. I've got water temperature and I've got oil pressure right here. I know they don't match. All right, this is electric water temperature gauge. But I know I've got one here in the dash, but I wanted a better one. I wanted one I could, that wasn't 50 years old. I knew I could trust. Okay. I did have a mechanical temperature gauge. That thing, that didn't even make it a year. Okay. And it was brand new when I bought it. So, anyway, there you go. I've got a B&M shifter right here. This is a ratchet style shifter. It actually, I can pull it back like that. And then when I want to go into gears very quickly, I can just go like that. There we go. All right, I want to go into gears quickly and I'm drag racing. You see what I'm saying? It just ratchets into the next gear. Starts off in first, and then second, and then third. Okay, but then I can also drive it like a regular automatic. So, but anyway, yeah, I've got, there's my two fans, electric fans. I'll show them to you later. I've also got a little choke knob right here. But anyway, yeah, this is it's a pretty Spartan, pretty basic interior. There's no air conditioning, there's no power steering seats, door locks, windows, and anything like that. All that stuff just adds weight, and yeah, this car did come with power steering, but I removed it. I've got manual steering in it now, and it's just great. I mean, it doesn't really need power steering because it's not a hard car to steer anyway. Okay, but anyway, but this is the interior. These seats are. Let me see if I can get you a better view of these seats. I'll tell you what. Let me get out. Let you see a little bit more. Okay, these are the seats right here. I've got seat covers over them right now. These aren't the factory seats, okay? These are from a much later 80s model Dodge Charger Daytona. These are, I do some drag racing with this car. I didn't want to use a factory style seat because I was afraid of, if there's, I felt like these would support me a heck of a lot better, not only in drag racing, but when I do some autocross. I have done some autocross competition with this, and when I do that, I feel like these seats support me way better. I've actually used these seats in another vehicle once before, and they do support me. They support me very well, and they're very comfortable. And my old seats, the foam in them is breaking down. The covers, the seat covers on them, the material on them is, excuse me, is falling apart. So, and I have the back seat and all the interior, all the carpet and everything like that. I don't have the back seat in right now because it weighs too much. It's too heavy. Okay, a lot of weight there. It has a folding rear seat. Okay, and there's a panel. Let me show you. If you see that panel back there at the very back, that panel, that folds down. Okay, right. That folds down, and you can actually get into the trunk. And I'll show you the trunk right now. Oops, my hand's in the way again. My apologies. Now, like I said before, I use this for drag racing. Okay, so I have the battery back here. Okay, all right, you see right there, there's my battery. Now, we've got some latches right here. Okay, so you just pull them down. There you go. You can load long, very large, long items right in there, I've actually had a few 2x4s in there once, years ago. But anyway, let's see. There we go. Shut that there. But very handy, very handy. So see, when you buy one of these, you can tell the wife, honey, it's very practical. Along with the, the higher horsepower engine. Okay. But I have had the back seat in it before. I've got the back seat. It's just over here in the garage. I took it out because it is heavy, but it is fun to have it in there because the kids can get back there and they can sit back there. And honestly, this thing has got quite a bit of room in the back seat. It's really surprising. You think of a lot of the pony cars like Mustangs and Camaros and stuff, and that sort of thing, not having, just very crammed in the back seat. Not this one. I mean, you've got quite a bit of floorboard room back here. And speaking of floorboards, I did put new floorboards in this one. I made the floorboards myself. And just so you know, this is a project that is on a shoestring budget. I don't have a lot of money tied up in this, and I can't have a lot of money tied up in this. I've got kids to raise, I've got bills to pay, I've got other things that need to be taken care of. This can't be my number one priority as far as like taking all my money, okay? But let's get down to some brass tacks, okay? Let's get down to some mechanical stuff. Rear axle is a 8 3/4 Mopar. It is 355 geared. Yes, it is the that style of rear axle. It is a 741 carrier. That means it has the splined hubs and axles. Hey, that's just the way it is. Okay. These particular wheels are 16-inch. They are off of a Dodge Intrepid. And they are really great because that particular rear axle is a little bit wider than the factory rear axle. Now, the factory rear axle on these is a 7 1/4, which basically means that rear axle is going to be too wide, a little bit wider than the factory one. Now, the factory rear axle, the 7 1/4, was too, it was too high geared. Not only that, it had, they weren't that strong. So, and I wanted something that would take a lot of abuse. Okay, got a flashlight with me. So, now, I'm afraid this video is going to be, I'm going to have to break it up into two parts. That's just the way it is, okay? So I'm going to show you everything I can today, and then tomorrow I'm going to make another video and show you everything I can tomorrow, okay? So now, yeah, it's 355 geared. It is an open differential. Unfortunately, right now I don't have a locker or a limited slip or a sure grip rear end in it, or sure grip center section. It's just the way it is. Now, I'd like to have a lower gear also, but again, it is what it is. And shoestring budget, remember? Okay, everything on this is done as inexpensively as I can get by with. Okay, now of course stuff wasn't done cheaply or poorly. It was just done inexpensively. So that's your overriding thing. So let me give you a better. See, that's the thing right there. Now that rear end being wider is why I went to that particular wheel. It is a come from a front wheel drive car, which puts most of the wheel inward. Okay. So what that does is it gets that wheel away from the inner fender right here. Okay. So gets that tire away from the inner fender and keeps it from rubbing. Now the original, if I run a different style of wheel, more like something like a factory to one of these cars, it will it'll make that rear axle rub. Now also too, for those of you wondering, this is the 5 on 4.5 inch lug pattern. I've switched that all the way around and I have not regretted it, not one day. Okay, even with the wider rear axle, yes, but you know, it's been pretty stout. It's taken all of my abuse. So also go ahead and show you this right here. As you can see, that is the exhaust. Yes, that is 3 inches. Okay. And that's not just a 3-inch tip. That's 3 inches, and that goes up there quite a ways. Okay. And it has a muffler. It does have a muffler, but it's a straight through muffler, and it's 3 inches in and 3 inches out. And it is a true 3 inches in. It's not something that necks down inside the muffler. I don't know if I showed you or not. The steering wheel's got that nice plastic wood grain on there. Also, too, the steering wheel, I swapped in these seat belts. These are from a much later model car. They're a 3-point seat belt. Now, you need to be safe. You need to have good seat belts when you're racing. You need to be safe anytime you're driving, period. You need good seat belts regardless. But yes, I've used those style of wheels all the way around, and they are 16 inches. They are 8 inches wide, and they actually saved me quite a bit of weight. It was really surprising. The steel wheels were like, they were 12 pounds heavier. All four, they were like 6 pounds. No, it was 24 pounds. They saved me 24 pounds all the way around. It was 6 pounds per wheel that I shaved off this thing. So it was pretty crazy. Now up front, I did have to use an adapter plate, okay? But it's an adapter. It's the same lug pattern. So what it does is it just pushes the wheel out. So I guess you could say I used a spacer, but it's more like an adapter, but it's a very heavy duty piece. It's milled out of a billet steel chunk of metal or aluminum. So, okay. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to end this video here. I'm going to pick it back up, and I'm going to try to make more of this video tonight. And I'm going to do as much as I can to show you as much of this car as I can. Love this car, and I'm really bowled over by how many people have been just so positive and giving me positive comments about this car and about all this other stuff I'm doing. If you like what I'm doing, give me a nice little thumbs up, okay? But also too, if you got any questions, comments, ideas, anything, put it down there in the comment section below. I am very happy to hear anything you've got, okay? So thank you very much. God bless, and have a good one.